In 2018, around Halloween 2018 was released. The film is set 20 years after the original, and Laurie Strode is dealing with PTSD and still living in fear that Michael will still the film is set 40 years later, and Laurie Strode is dealing with PTSD and still living in fear that Michael will still find her. But this time she's prepared. So this movie should have been called Michael Myers, or Halloween Return of Michael Myers, but for Laurie, not Laurie's niece. Or Halloween H40, but ignoring H20. Or The Final Halloween. This is also the second time a John Carpenter movie has either had a sequel or a prequel where they couldn't come up with a better title than the original. Also, this is officially the third film in the franchise to just be called Halloween, only 2 movies after the previous Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis returns as Laurie Strode, and for a majority of this movie, Michael Myers was played by James Jude Courtney, but also for some scenes a cameo from the guy who played the original Michael Myers. You know, Nick Castle, the guy who directed The Last Starfighter, Dennis the Menace, and my childhood favourite, Major Payne.
What are you laughing at, pig boy? You find a piece of candy in your pocket?
No, sir.
What's your name, Tubby?
Heathcote, sir.
Heathcote. You know, you remind me of the Doughboy. If I poke your stomach, we'll make you go, ooh. You know what? I'm gonna help you make room for lunch, bacon boy. Drop down, get me 30 sit-ups right now!
Also, John Carpenter returns as the executive producer and as well as the movie's film composer, and holy shit, this soundtrack is phenomenal. It's his retro 78 synth, but not in a homage way, it is his 1978 synth. Carpenter knows his theme, and he knows it well. And I've been listening to it on loop while writing this review, and it's making it pretty difficult to have negatives to say about this movie. But don't worry, we'll get into that later. So I'll be getting into spoilers, which isn't a big deal seeing as the whole fucking planet has seen this movie already, except for Australia, who got it a goddamn week late. So I have 2 comparisons to make of this movie. Star Wars The Force Awakens and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Like The Force Awakens, its main focus was not only to get back on track to the beginnings of what made this franchise work, but to also make us feel what it was like back when we enjoyed this franchise, before sequels and remakes made it fade away in culture and memory. Also, Terminator 2. Laurie was once a timid, shy, virgin girl next door. Now she's a super weapon who spent her entire life training with combat, weapons, survival tactics. Forced her daughter to do the same, and then Child Services took her daughter away due to her obsession and PTSD of prior events. She's gone crazy and no one either believes her or they just want her to move on. And now the hunter becomes the hunted. Also at the end, the lead characters and a killing machine are staring at each other while one burns to death and the others have a heroic yet sad look as the nightmare is finally over. But also maybe it's not, because money. So this movie in a way is a remake of Halloween H20. It basically achieves the same goal, just in very different ways. This movie was a much more modern day retro movie, taking us back to not just the era of the original, but also its tone and themes, but just more violent and stylistic. Where Halloween H20 just screams the late 1990s. But they just wanted to make another after the failure of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. But I also wanted to give it some integrity, like the original. Also, it was made in the fucking late 90s. Chillin', bro! Tommy wants to break out of Third Rock from the Sun. That's whack! The movie looks like a sequel to The Craft. Yo, cool your jets! We got Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams. Talk to the Hand. LL Cool J. So much LL Cool J. Deep Blue Sea. Into Deep. Rollerball. So in preparation for this new movie, I rewatched the original Halloween and H20. I figured since I haven't seen any of the sequels in about 10 years, then just having those 2 be the freshest in my mind will help me see this new movie without thinking about what came before it. Also, this and H20 ignore everything that basically came after the first Halloween, give or take an original Halloween 2. All this being said, yes, the movie is really great and well made, and yes, it's more of a worthy sequel to anything that has come after the original. But after watching H20, I noticed that it had some really amazing moments that this movie sort of lacked, in terms of Laurie and Michael facing off again after so long. And also in a way has a stronger character connection to the original Halloween and original Halloween 2. Laurie has since changed her identity and is trying to live a normal life as like a school principal or whatever with her son and husband. And for some reason, Michael decided he wanted to find her again, so he snoops around the house of the doctor that he grabbed the face of in the original and found out where she lives now. And almost in psychic fashion, Laurie starts seeing images of Michael everywhere. And everyone around her is assuring her that Michael is dead after the explosion of Halloween 2. But what do you know, Michael shows up and it's time to face your demons. And in this movie, apparently after the events of the original movie, Michael just got arrested. Like, he fell off the balcony, Loomis gave that look of, I knew this would happen. But Michael probably got up, walked a few feet and vomited, and then the police nabbed him, to which I wonder what Loomis's life would have been like after the events of the first movie then. Also, I feel Michael would be a bit disabled after being shot so many times, but also 40 years to the day, Laurie is armed to the teeth, guns, traps, combat training, war veteran PTSD. But it's kind of confusing as to why. Since this movie ignores Halloween 2 and Laurie being Michael's sister, I can't really buy that she would be this prepared. Like, he just killed a few of her friends on one night and has been locked up for 40 years. And also, how did she afford all this? Like, what does she do for work? Also, at the ripe old age of 61, somehow Michael is still built like a machine and just kills with ease. Which I guess is fine, but the connection to Michael and Laurie feels much more stronger in H20. Not a good movie, but there are some moments that even rewatching gave me chills. The moment when Laurie and Michael see each other through the window for the first time, it's finally confirmed to her that he's still alive and he's finally reached his target. Then the horror and chasing begin. Then comes this great moment where Laurie has the chance to escape with her son and his girlfriend, but she gets out of the car and yells at them to go. Then she breaks the mechanism to the gate, stopping anyone from getting in. Then this incredible moment happens. This movie sort of had a disconnect in a way, where Laurie is sort of more obsessed with Michael than he is her. She's the one that's been bringing him up all this time, and he's just been happy to stand still there for 40 years. And like, I guess he wants to break out after all this time because this dickhead showed him the old Shatner mask. But once he breaks out, he just makes his way to Haddonfield and just starts killing. With no goal, just stabs who he sees. And people say like, that's what makes Michael scary because he has no motive and just kills. But in the original, he clearly had a motive of sorts. He steals his sister's headstone and Laurie approaches his childhood house, so he decides that he's gonna kill her. Then he proceeds to stalk her, and then when he's just out on the streets, he sees Laurie with her friends. Then all of them just become his main targets for the rest of the film. It's like he locked into a solid plan. He doesn't go around killing random people along the way. In this movie, he just has like one interaction with Laurie in the town, but then goes back to just killing random people. He's not actually trying to kill Laurie until the guy from The Conjuring 2 puts him in a car and delivers him near Laurie's house, along with Laurie's granddaughter. Then Michael kills Maurice Gross, Laurie's granddaughter gets away, and then Michael steals a cop car and knows how to drive to Laurie's house, and then the rest of the movie, although really emotionally effective and well done, just becomes Terminator 2 in a way. What was a staple in the previous movie is now flipped, so rather than Sarah Connor still being the shy, scared little girl, she's now combat ready. Also has to force herself to be a killer, to kill her killer. Showdown in the factory again, showdown in the house again. Michael falls off the ledge, Loomis looks down, Michael's laying there 1 minute, next he's gone. This movie, Laurie falls off the ledge, Michael looks down, Laurie is there 1 minute, next she's gone. So it sort of just becomes a game of whose role's been reversed this time. So I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but I don't care. I really like Rob Zombie's Halloweens. I know how people love to say that his films take away from the mystery of Michael Myers. Meanwhile, Michael has so much backstory in the original. Yet we have this fan favorite exposition character to constantly tell you how evil he is and has been for years. People talk about Michael as if the movie starts, this guy in a mask and a knife starts killing, then it ends, and it's just brilliant. Which really isn't the case. Michael has more going on character-wise than people like to think. But what I actually like about Rob Zombie's remake is the backstory. I think it's the best thing that it had to offer in terms of a remake. And if you think that spoils the character, well then you just have the original to go rewatch. And on top of that, Malcolm McDowell is really good as Loomis. and everyone is praising how brutal the kills are in this new Halloween, but I honestly don't see the difference between how Rob Zombie approached the violence and how this movie did. Also, his movie was more like, you know that Dragon Ball Z Kai show where they like recut the original, but they cut out all the fat and made the show more tighter and to the point? So where in the original, Michael just picked Laurie and stalked her, then in the sequel, when Carpenter didn't know what to do next, he just made up that Laurie is Michael's sister. Zombie actually gave that a proper setup in the first movie, which also added for a pretty tense scene, in my opinion, where Michael has Laurie's friend laying next to his mother's headstone, Laurie is next to it, and Michael just like sits in front of her and takes his mask off as like an offering of something, but Laurie has no idea what's happening. So then she stabs him and tries to get away, which then makes Michael snap. Like, that moment's great to me, and I actually love his Halloween 2. If you ignore the Sherry Moon zombie ghost shit, then it's actually a great character movie. Laurie and Annie are suffering from severe PTSD. Michael is just walking his way across country. Meanwhile, Loomis turns into kind of a dick, and he's about to publish this book that reveals that Laurie is Michael's sister, and that just fucking stirs up everything. Also, if you hate the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, I totally get it. Won't try to sway your opinion at all. However, Brad Dourif gives a fucking heartbreaking performance in that sequel, and I think he's the best character in that movie. So in closing, I have to bring up the ending of this movie. After a really great tense series of events, Laurie hunting Michael with her guns and booby traps. Michael is locked up in a panic room she has built into the floor. They are only separated by like bars. And then Laurie sets the whole house on fire to burn Michael alive, which was such an amazing emotional moment, just like Terminator 2 watching Arnie descent into the molten steel. The feels after such an intense journey, but then there are no shots of Michael on fire. We then see shots of the basement on fire with no Michael. Then Laurie, her daughter and granddaughter get out. They get a ride on the back of someone's pickup truck. Close up on the granddaughter holding the knife. Cut to credits. Now, in this moment, I did not want a sequel setup. I was thinking to myself, just kill him. Have a send-off. I don't want to continue in this elderly Halloween franchise. Already fucking sequel news. Now, this whole movie was great, despite the criticisms I have. It's still an incredible return, and a lot of the ignoring of the franchise was well handled. But you're not gonna get this lightning in a bottle again. Jason Blum wants a sequel because it's a financial hit. Jamie Lee Curtis wants a sequel because it made her relevant again like Mark Hamill in Star Wars, and now Danny McBride is saying that there are ideas on where they could go with it. Why can't people just be brave and wrap up franchises? The best I've ever seen is Christopher Nolan wrapping up the Dark Knight franchise. Just ended it, and it was the highest grossing of the series, where Warner Brothers would have loved for him to keep going. But yeah, aside from that, I highly recommend it. This is really well made, lots of fun. I give it the full $6.50 out of $6.50 I spent, and I actually want to go see it again, which is rare for me. The only movies I saw twice this year were Avengers Infinity War and Deadpool 2. Also, stay tuned, I got a few more horror movies to review. I was planning on them all coming out in October, but a whole lot of life bullshit happens, so it might seem like I'm dragging the Halloween season into November, but what goes on in November anyway?
You ate my bird.